Today, the Foreign Minister and I discussed the evolving situation on the Korean Peninsula in light of the reports from North Korea state-owned media on the death of Kim Jong-il. We reiterate our hope for improved relations with the people of North Korea and remain deeply concerned about their well-being.
I think it's very possible that the military are simply, who hold the real power in North Korea, are simply not going to accept this 20-something newly minted four-star general as the inevitable successor.
Well, the man known as Dear Leader in North Korea, Kim Jong-il, died Saturday of a heart attack. The news being spread by state-run media. His successor, his son, 27-year-old heir Kim Jong-un. As you heard John Bolton talking about, we don't know a lot about him. He was educated in Switzerland. He's a basketball fanatic, but otherwise he's an unknown commodity. And there are some worries that he may try to do something to provoke or at least show what he would think is his strength as the new leader there. We're back with our panel. Charles, what about this?
Well, the honest answer is we don't know, but unlike on a lot of other issues, we are not alone in not knowing, because it's an incredibly opaque regime. What we do know is that when Kim Jong-il, the dead Dear Leader, took over, he'd been working closely with the father for about 10 years, so he'd already acquired authority in the military and elsewhere. This guy, our new guy, Mr. Un, is coming in without any experience whatsoever. The grooming began only about a year ago. In fact, the people of the country hadn't even heard of this guy or seen a picture of him until about a year ago. So he has no relationships. There's also a little squiggle in this where the sister of the dead Dear Leader has been given authority, and her husband. So you've got a kind of a regency here, a kind of a Shakespearean situation in which the young one ends up in the Tower of London or worse. In the end, it's probably the military, and they will decide which of the Kims will reign, if any. But the idea that somehow this will hasten or bring about the collapse of the regime, I think, is a doubtful one. It's incredibly stable over time and has defied all expectations of collapse for many decades.
One, I should point out today, North Korea fired two short-range missiles, Russian variety from the back of vehicles, not the same long range that we've seen, the multi-stage like the Taepodong 2, but one, there's still this thought that we don't know what's coming in the weeks ahead.
We have no idea. I mean, nobody today in Washington, including Secretary of State Clinton, had any idea. She's talking with people who were involved in the six-party talks that broke down, principally China, and saying, what do you know? What are you hearing? Do we have any control here? And the answer so far is no. There is no control. No one knows him, as Charles was saying. And the fear really boils down to the fact that not only are they firing off devices, but that they continue to have nuclear weapons, and that they have more uranium than ever for further enrichment, which means that if this man is of a mind to begin using those weapons against South Korea, we could be in for some real trouble. Now remember, this comes at a time when China is trying to enforce that the idea that it, not the United States, not anybody else, is in control of that whole South Asian region. And if that's the case, the question then, you know, we understand that the Chinese are afraid of a rush of people across the border should this country become unstable. But why won't the Chinese act in such a way as to gain control or force some kind of talks at this point of transition?
Well, that may change quickly. We have 28,500 U.S. troops along the border there, South Korea. David.
Of course, China likes the idea that North Korea causes us fits, and I think that's why they don't ever try and do too much about it, in addition to the fact that they're worried about a rush across the border. North Korea is kind of like a disease that's sort of in remission but always ready to rear its ugly head and cause us problems. And I think especially as we're heading into a presidential campaign season, it's a reminder of how volatile certain parts of the world are, and the fact that either President Obama could be dealing with this, a new president could be dealing with this, and we still have no answers.
Turn topics quickly. The man who led the Velvet Revolution, Václav Havel, dissident playwright, man who spent years in communist jails, former Czech president, died. Charles, his significance for the freedom movement, really.
He was one of the great heroes of human liberty and of the Cold War. At the nadir of the democracy movement, meaning in the mid-70s when the Soviets were ascendant and strong in America and the West in retreat, he authored the Charter 77 of the year 1977, which declared the sort of the dignity of man against the communist authorities at a time when everybody imagined it was simply a lost cause, and he turned it by the moral example and the courage he and the others who signed it set, and by the counterparts in Poland, Valencia, and the worker revolution there, essentially liberated Eastern Europe from within. One of the great successes and heroes of our time.
Juan, a lot of people put him in the ranks of even Nelson Mandela in South Africa.
Oh, absolutely. For Eastern Europe, I mean, Mandela was in jail, Havel was in jail, and you think about how they wouldn't allow Mandela's writings, and clearly the letters from Olga, which were the letters from Havel to his first wife, and talked about, picking up on this theme of the individual denying the lie, just tremendous power.
I think we take it for granted that the Soviet Union and the Iron Curtain ended up on the ash heap of history, as Ronald Reagan once said, and said was going to happen. But it wasn't necessarily destined to be. I mean, that was, for the first half of my life, we didn't think could go anywhere. It's individuals like this that over time, by sticking with it, helped bring that about from the inside.
That is it for the panel, but stay tuned for a new holiday ad overseas.